country lies at the southernmost point of Arabia. While the incense trade was going strong, it was one of the richest countries of the Old World, and also known as Arabia Felix, Happy Arabia. Its famous temples were buried beneath the sand for centuries, but the oldest secret of today's Yemen is not buried under the sand. It lies in the Indian Ocean. It is the largest Arabian island, Saqطrى. In unique geographic and weather conditions, one of the most virginal parts of the world has retained almost intact the appearance of its landscape, flora, fauna, and inhabitants. And because of this, scientists know the archipelago of Saqطrى as the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean. However, monsoons can change life on the island. In such conditions, access to Saqطrى, where there are no sheltered bays or havens, is rendered very difficult. The Hajj Mountains, or the Arabian Rockies, is a land of slender granite towers. They tower 1,500 meters above the coast like a steep wall. They represent a backbone that runs east-west along the island. Geologists see Saqطrى as one of the most isolated parts of the world in the geological history of the planet, and the only part of the large prehistoric continent Gondwana which remained unattached from the other masses that split away from the original prehistoric continent. The horizon is hidden behind canopies of large trees. It's the land of the legendary dragon blood tree. Whenever sandstorms lash the island, its inhabitants hate to leave their dwellings, which makes the island an almost lethargic place. The capital, Hadibo, lies on the northern alluvial plain. It gets back to normal life when the monsoons recede. The island has long been cut away from civilization, so the island community still lives according to century-old ancestral traditions. Saleh Islami is a young islander whose parents have moved to the fast-growing Hadibo on the other side of the island. He's meeting his two friends who will help him lay fishing nets in the evening. Amar and Abdul Ghani greet each other by rubbing noses. It's the centuries-old traditional greeting of the Saqطrans. It's the height of the fishing season, and it's necessary to replenish the stock of fish for the next monsoon season. The port of Hadibo is constantly buffeted by winds and waves from the northern quadrants. The big waves can make landing extremely dangerous. The old and the young watch the fishermen get ready. They watch how the weather conditions change in order to see whether the sea will allow the fishermen to set sail. The shark hunters go first, for they will voyage all night. Most of these fishermen are the descendants of East African slaves. Sheikh Ali, the head of the family, lets the young do all the work, while he sees that community and family laws are observed. For centuries, Socotra has been a safe haven for sailors from shipwrecked or plundered boats, and a guiding beacon for fleets on their way to the Indian Ocean. That's why the Portuguese, and later the English, used it as a naval stronghold. Shark hunters fish a few hours' voyage outside the archipelago. Amar's boat will be back no sooner than the next morning. Meanwhile, in the shallow waters on the other side of the island, Saleh and Abdul Ghani stop their boat, which is called a huri, at the site where shoals of fish gather at the intersection of different marine currents. They cast their nets in places that, as far as they know, are far from the strong currents. Shoals of tuna and barracuda fall prey even as they hunt. The future of these islands and their wealth of natural resources that include some endangered species needs to be protected. Now they are recognized as part of our natural heritage. UNESCO declared them a reserve of the world biosphere. Or Nectarinia balfouri, has a long crooked beak and lives from the nectar of flowers. It lives only on Socotra and is one of 6 endemic species. The bird population on Socotra is the largest in the Middle East, numbering 1,000 breeding pairs. The shallow waters around the island, where shoals of fish converge to float with the currents, are home to numerous bird colonies. Today, a birdwatcher's expedition to the beach will be looking out for various species of seabird. They will record their meeting and breeding places. Ornithologists from BirdLife International are teaching Socotran children how to observe and recognize the life and the peculiarities of the rare species on the island. It's the only way they can appreciate their rarity and preserve them for future generations when they grow up.
That's got red legs, it's got red bill, and then
Dr. Porter, one of the most renowned ornithologists specializing in birds of the Middle East, is monitoring with his colleagues a colony of fishing petrels, or Bulweria phallax, and of shearwaters fishing at sea level among the huri boats. Socotra is a delicate ecosystem. Will it survive the challenges of economic growth that will bring along a new harbour and an offshore trading centre? Will this environment manage to survive? It's early morning. Yesterday, Saleh and his friends, the boat owner Abdul Ghani and his assistant Didas, positioned their nets by the Howlaf Cape. Like all fishermen, they have great expectations. The first net is empty. The second net contains a small shark. But the third is heavy. They drag up a good weight of fish. In little more than a day, they've caught 20 pounds of big fish, tuna, barracuda and whiting. During the fishing season, they must catch as much as possible. From May to September, during the monsoon season, when the sea is stormy, they can't go far out. The catch today is plentiful. That last net was their salvation. The catch is a few 20-pound tuna, barracuda, large whiting and derrick, that lie on the floor of the boat. We shall leave the coast to venture into the mainland, into the mysterious land of the dragon blood tree itself. The road mounts to the Dixon Plateau. We're on our way to the area of million-year-old tree fossils. According to Pliny the Elder, the tree appeared from the blood of the dragon killed by a dying elephant. Pliny is hinting at an old Hindu myth. This is the only place where this giant, 1,000-year-old fossil, with its mushroom-like top, grows. The plants are kept alive by dew that falls at night, itself caused by rising sea mists up high at the top of the mountains. At night they absorb moisture enough to survive the heat. The higher we go, the more of these 100-year-old trees we see. It's spring and the dragon trees are in bloom. The whole area is strewn with its typical umbrella-like tops. Higher up and above us we can see whole forests of them. If we need proof that the ecosystem where dragon trees have existed for millions of years is dying out, it is that there are almost no small trees. Scientists presume this is because cattle graze here, eating any young greenery which has a hard time germinating at all. We meet nomadic people, shepherds from the highlands. They live their solitary lives in the interior of the island, where few paths lead. In the damp highlands, with better conditions for pasture, they live by breeding small cattle, sheep and goats. The plateau is cut by canyons like Wadi Dahero. Beyond it, we see the slope of Firmichin with the densest woodland of dragon trees. A true tertiary forest. We're coming into the area of the cave people. We're entering their territory in the rocky highlands. Their chief, Sheikh Ali, slowly approaches. The Socotrans build the stone enclosures outside their caves in an ingenious way. They close the entrance so that from a little way off, it's hard even to notice the cave. Above these dwellings, one often sees the curious and endemic Socotran starling. Canyons split the highlands along the north-south line. Below, almost 300 meters lower, at the bottom of Wadi Dahero, glistens the creek where the family goes to fetch water. Sheikh Ali is counting how many times in his life he had to descend and climb this steep wall to get water from the canyon. Nowadays, Ali finds it easier to feed his family. He guides UN explorers across Dragon Tree country as he knows almost every inch of the highlands. Ali speaks the unusual Socotri language of the old settlers, which is older than most modern Arabic languages. This ancient Semitic language from the 3rd millennium BC shows when the first settlers arrived on the island. Ali knows many secrets of traditional healing. In the old Saqutry language, he explains to the young Abdul Latif why and how the sabah is collected. It's the sap of aloe periyi, which nourished his ancestors.
تشرب أنت إذا فيك مرض عندي مريض تروي
ايش انواع الامراض التي يشفي يقدر
مثلا جو ملاريا وتروي عن سخانة يعني هكذا.
So we had teams of international and Yemeni researchers working together with our local team here in Saqطرى, which is now 58 strong and is distributed all over the islands. The people who live in Saqطرى have, before the project, had very little understanding of how unique and how important it is the environment they live in. They had no idea that the plants that for them are obvious and they see them every day, that those plants and animals found only here, considered so important by all people all over the world.
The greatest scientific enigma is whether this tree, which is hundreds of years old, can regenerate. Will it die out? Have conditions up here on the high plateau changed too much?
Dracena cinnamomum, which is called also the dragon blood, is a relic species and also endemic. Is endemic because it's found only here in Saqطrى, nowhere else in the world. The only another close variety is found in Canary. It's called the Dracena draco. Here it's quite common. It's found from 500 meter and up to 1,600. It has been investigated on the problem of regeneration of this tree because many botanists have been here surveying the island and they discovered that there is no small trees growing on the island. As we see here, we are on the area the most dense in all the island. Firmenhin is the area when we can find the highest population and the most dense population of Dracena cinnamomum, but no regeneration of Dracena cinnamomum has been noticed, has been found here, or we can say very, very little regeneration is found here in this area. Under the project, the biodiversity conservation project, we undertaken so many ecological surveys. This surveys is carried not only by researchers, but also by what we called in our project the extension officers, local people. Each area of the island, the tribes allocate or designate one person to work with the project as extension officer, as educational officer. So those people also, we train them how to carry out those sample surveys, to make transect and to count the number of trees, to look for regeneration. So this surveys is carrying out, and until now we covered half of Dracena, where Dracena cinnamomum.
On the other side of the island, someone else is still dreaming of the lost paradise. He dreams of a future that is based on the old island traditions. At sunset, a 1,000-year-old tree is slowly dying. After centuries, it has become top-heavy with all the moments of life, and the tree turns upside down to look at its roots. It breaks and tips over to stand on its head. In this way, eternity melts into just a few transient moments. This tree will never know whether it had any young. It will never know how long the forest will continue to survey the endless ocean from the top of the island, the ocean that nourished it with wet winds for thousands of years. Every evening, the old Sheikh Salem is mending his son's nets on the beach. Here he listens to the sea, waiting for the prophecy of a future life on this remote island. It's a prophecy that he would pass on to his sons right now.